and Ndugu Dan Rugarama, who will also be bringing in a lot of ideas on what is happening on the African continent and what does that mean to us, or the people who are living on this continent, and maybe some of you who are not living on this continent. But of course, we are all interconnected on the issues that affect us both here and those of you who are not here at home in Africa. So those are some of the issues that we'll be looking at. And as usual, before we go there, because we know time is also not on our side, we'll be looking at what has been of interest individually from each of us that we may have seen happen on this continent of Africa. And to do so, I'll invite Ndugu Rugarama to briefly take us through what he found of interest on this continent, particularly in the past exactly 1 week. Ndugu Rugarama, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Comrade Mtuta. Good morning, Sister Takari. And good morning to you all, our dear esteemed viewers. The Houthi rebels in Yemen have stepped up their campaign. They are doing, they say, bidding for what is happening in Gaza Strip. They have made the waters very ungovernable. They are hitting the ships that are deemed to be of American and the associates origin, and they claim to be sending a message to those who are supporting what is happening to the Palestinians, especially in the Gaza Strip and parts of the West Bank. Of course, America with her cousins have retaliated by hitting the targets they claim to be harboring the Houthi rebels, so-called rebels. But I think this is what happens when you deny people all the options. This is where they resort, because the Houthi rebels have not had anything to do with the Gaza incidences until they realized that save for what South Africa took to the ICC, which even after the ruling has largely not been respected. So this is what they are doing, and in a way you may belittle their contribution, but I think the message slowly but surely will sink deep in
they also don't have much to do.
Yeah, that's what they have.
Anyway.
So that is one. Then, no, wait a minute. That is one. Then I also realize, of course, the mounting pressure. Trump was given a ban for 3 years not to transact business in one of the states. What is the state again? In one of the states in America where it is claimed that he didn't pay taxes.
But has he ever paid a tax, actually?
There are so many things, of course.
He pays less than he should.
These big so-called big taxpayers in majority of the developed countries, by the way, they either avoid or deliberately dodge, because of tax avoidance. They say is not necessarily criminal, but it is bad manners, so it is immoral. But tax evasion is illegal. Now that Trump did tax evasion, and also where he could, he did tax avoidance. So but of course, you know, that is mixed also around the coming elections, general presidential elections. Of what is of the greatest importance in that is that we seem to be having the war in Ukraine, you must have now realized that, of course, Russia has stepped up its campaign, and it is now
Not just a
taking.
campaign, the killing.
It is taking territories. It is taking territories. The other time there were no really major territories that were being captured. So maybe also finally the moving out of Niger, and which is partly our topic.
Yeah, that
today
one will
for
come
discussion.
to. Yeah. And so, Rachel, what was your week like?
Well, the week was eventful, at least on the local front. Further away, there was also activity, but I think I'd like to point out some of the interesting developments here locally. There is a very determined push by the government to merge many of its agencies. They say there's too much duplication, wastage of resources.
Sure.
There is need
That's
to
true, yeah.
do something urgently
Yeah.
about this. And accordingly, multiple bills have been presented in Parliament to make sure that this comes to pass sooner rather than later. Further away, we have to really congratulate the Constitutional Council in Senegal that is working very hard to redeem the honor of that country. President Macky Sall and company have been working very hard to degrade the gains in democratic terms that the people of Senegal have really won the hard way over the years. But they have made their stance very clear, and the fact that the president and others who think like him are totally out of order. I think it's heartening, because there are many things that are not going well on this continent. So if we have at least one development, and in government circles, kudos.
But I think since we are looking at the part of the West Africa on the continent, I think let's begin from there. Macky Sall comes up as one of the Democrats of this continent. At one point, he's hailed as the Democrat, as the sober man, then along the way, I don't know if it was because of that praise, or that was the mathematics, the engineering that he was working around, turns up to be something else. Because you would have seen, remember when he reduced the office term of the president from to a few years. And then we thought he is going to do a lot of things, knowing that he's using his last term in office to put the country in order. And it's one of the most stable countries in the Western Africa. And then, boom, this comes up in trying to change the constitution. And he has been very shy, talking about if he's interested in continuing as a president or not. Has never mentioned. He says he's now going away April 2nd. That will be his last day in office. And then all this is happening. Is it, when you look at it, where is the problem? And I think we should also somehow thank the military of that country, because it was another place where a coup could have happened, because he's doing the same things that Bazoum and others did, but at least for Bazoum. But for him, he's going against the very constitution of his country, even at the time when everyone is saying no. You remember the fights that were in Parliament, on the streets, and all over the place. So where is the problem?
This is more or less what happened in Guinea Conakry with Professor.
Exactly.
And there are many who have really backtracked on the promise that they came with to high office.
Exactly.
It is disappointing when someone has spent quite a few years pushing for what they say is good governance, and then when you get to the high place, you proceed to really dismantle every single step that has been taken to make sure that this is indeed the place that that should be. Suffice to say that Senegal in particular, it wasn't under Macky Sall, but it was at the forefront of making sure that Gambia, you remember that fiasco in Gambia?
Yes, yeah.
Where the president at the time,
Yeah, Jamie.
that very one, was defeated in the elections, and he refused to give way.
He actually considered, then he changed.
He changed.
Okay.
Then ECOWAS said, come
Africa.
on.
But ECOWAS, you're saying ECOWAS, but the ECOWAS team was anchored by Senegal. In fact, they closed in and they were determined to really remove this man
Exactly.
by force. So what happened to a Senegal that not so many years ago was anchoring an effort to remove people who, you know, represented this sort of digression?
Exactly.
I think that shows the fragile nature of democracy in Africa. It really has not taken root. It is superficial. And I think it's because of something that we have said many times before. It is not homegrown. This kind of democracy that was transplanted from other people's experiences, other people's cultures, other people's way of seeing things, is not serving us.
Yeah.
I have said many, many times that unless we have that conversation and come up with an answer that we ourselves can superintend for the long term, these sorts of things will continue.
Actually, Macky Sall is also saying these elections are not going to take place. Of course, which were supposed to have by now have taken place.
He's supposed to have quit this very month.
Yes.
They push to December.
No, even December, because now Macky Sall is saying until we have a discussion to agree.
But with who? Not while you're there.
With who?
Not while you're
With
there.
the stakeholders, that's what he's saying. Unless we have a discussion, a genuine discussion to agree on the like.
But you're not Senegal.
Exactly.
Senegal is saying, give way so we can begin that process.
But
You're not the
remember,
country.
You remember, Sister Takari, that he has got a sizable, a little bit higher sizable parliamentary group, and they are the ones who are doing all this work, as compared to the opposition.
But the people of Senegal say they want to
But
go.
the people of Senegal go through their
To redo this thing.
Unless, of course, we are talking about street
Yeah, but of course,
demonstrations.
I agree with you that this man has the majority in parliament.
Yes.
And
And they are the ones
But
who
it
are
is
doing all
not a
this.
parliamentary democracy.
But of course, but the other thing is that who says that when you have a parliamentary majority, you should be involved in doing wrong things?
What don't you say? Is he the only one now? Like Takari was saying, on the African continent, who is not using the parliament where it needs to be used?
And
No,
that's
but
what-
I think you don't only blame the Africans, because you saw you were talking about Trump when we were having these issues of Trump and his many of his.
Do you know? Do you know? Let me say this also very quickly. Do you know as to why, for instance, the money supposed to be arming the Ukrainians to defend themselves is not coming out of America? You know who is delaying?
because they are fighting in their own parliament.
Thank you very much. So, do you know that Zelensky was appealing to Trump, who is even not a president, appealing that if Trump wants, I will bring him here to see what is happening, not in media, but see what is happening on
Yeah,
the
but then
battlefield.
that is also something that
So everybody is using parliament. You know?
But it doesn't make it right.
Yes,
It doesn't,
because,
absolutely.
because like Macky Sall, you are looking at a parliament, fine, you may have the majority, but finally, when the country goes up in flames, is when you realize that even the majority in parliament didn't help you.
Unfortunately, Macky Sall, with all due respect, unfortunately, he's pushing his country in, because you see, we are now looking at the constitutional crisis on the African continent. In itself, it is another coup. We are talking about coups in Niger, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali, but there are also coups which are silent, like we had coups in Benin, we had coups.
Not to mention stolen elections. Those ones are also coups.
Exactly.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Electoral coups as vis-a-vis, because you see electoral coups and the constitutional coups, because sometimes, by the way, the electoral coups are as a consequence of tampered with constitutions.
Yes.
Is it? So we had a constitutional crisis and an electoral coup in Benin. There was one in Togo. We are experiencing one in Senegal. There was an electoral coup, but which was nipped in the bud in the Gambia.
There were
You
contested
remember.
outcomes in Nigeria.
You see,
And on and on. And on and on.
Can you count?
A cross section. We were looking at the whole West. It's you who brought the topic.
Not West Africa,
Yes,
Africa.
West Africa. The Nigeria, there is this, a big section of the Nigerians.
In Kenya here.
The good thing they
And
took
where
it,
we are, of course, in
the
Uganda.
good thing they took it to court.
To court,
You
yes.
see, the most important thing is now that, yes, you can have a contest. These contestations, where do you end?
Exactly.
Oh, as long as at least we have got the channels functioning, you can, of course, they are not 100%, but at least if people can listen that, well, we had a disagreement, and this disagreement at pores went to courts of law, and these were how the courts ruled, and we have now respected what the courts ruled and how they did it. We wait for next term. But this business of disagreeing and thinking that you are not going, and this is the unfortunate part, by the way, which is happening with this very topic that we are looking at. This is what is happening with Niger, this is what is happening with Burkina Faso, this is what is happening with Mali. Why do I say so? They also have, apart from having carried out the coups, and personally, I was happy that the coups were carried out, to get rid of the French West African imperialism. But when it comes to what they have consistently said,
Yeah.
let me have this said also. What they have consistently said, they said it when they went to UN. All the three, by the way, leaders, the juntas, they said that the democracy does not work and it is the enemy of the people. They continued and said the same thing when they went to Russia. All of them. Now, they have turned democracy to be the problem. They said the kind of democracy we have on the African continent is a sham, does not work. Even then, when you look at a country like Mali, which had gained some progress discussing with ECOWAS on how to transit from a military regime to a civilian kind of rule. It's herself recently, it backtracked and it said, we are no longer interested in progressing to civilian rule, we are now going to remain to the military. My conclusion, these people, we have to be very careful. Probably they have now tested power, and you know power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. They have now tested literal power in their respective countries. They seem not to want to leave, and probably we are brewing a bigger problem than we hitherto imagined.
That
But
is the point.
Even that aside, I think the principal reason why there is no significant movement in issues such as this one is because almost no one has any moral authority to tell anyone anything. Because when I look at you, you're not different from me. Because look at ECOWAS, which was in a better position some years ago. And we have just talked about their military outfit, ECOMOG, which was very active in stopping such excesses in places such as Gambia, Sierra Leone, in times past. But to date, and even as in times past, ECOWAS is still anchored by Nigeria for obvious reasons. They have the biggest population, biggest economy, biggest military, and so on and so forth. But when the president, the sitting president, is one who is in a place where even his electoral victory is still contested, how are you going to tell me about my democratic credentials? I think that is a principal reason why AU cannot meaningfully tell anybody about anything. Look at the club or the group of people who populate this group. Who of them is not guilty of these very crimes? A handful. So, even when ECOWAS came out very strongly in the beginning, they have since lost steam because what are you going to tell me? Look at you, you're still in court. You're the one telling me to be democratic. And so the fact that no one is seriously trying to get their house in order has crippled all efforts that would have put these things would have settled these kinds of situations. So the crisis is not just in the Sahel states. The crisis of governance is continent-wide. Whether you're talking about North Africa, South Africa, East or West, this crisis, which is informed, of course, we have said many times, by this colonial hangover, whether that be from people who are led by the Portuguese, the French, the Germans, the Italians, that blueprint continues to haunt us. And the courage to have a discussion that will propel us to places where we should be continues to elude us.
Yeah, because I think Rugarama brought it up somehow well, because we are looking at people, of course, starting with Macky Sall. We expected him to say, well, if that's what the people of Senegal want, I have no problem. Let them have elections, and then. But he has been having specifically a problem with the Sonko. So I think Sonko, he didn't want to see him on a ballot paper, tried to imprison him a number of times, and tried to throw him out of the ballot, but I think court ruled otherwise. So he may, in his mind, which should have been okay, needed some other person, which he should promote now, so that Sonko doesn't become a problem to him. But
he will no longer be in State House, so why would that be a problem to him?
Okay, because maybe he knows he's not the right leader for that country.
Who will no longer be in a State House?
But by issue of term limits.
Yes, sir.
You see, let me tell you, Sister Rachel, what we are talking about here, especially in the entire West Africa, if it is not an outright military coup, then we have got an electoral coup, whereby we are saying we are having a process of electing a new leader, we are only playing around with people's votes. If it is not that, then we have got a constitutional takeover and unconstitutional means of overthrowing a constitution. Now, when you again focus in a country like Senegal, a very clean example is backsliding. But why do we even have to go very far? Côte d'Ivoire, Ouattara. Is he not in his third term?
By force.
He's in his third term. And he recently hosted the AFCON. He won. His goals were very alive. Now the country is in glorious mood of their leader, who has
and he was one of those who kept threatening to intervene in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And do you know why he has not done that? He has not done that simple, and he was going to do it, by the way, but he checked himself and he realized that he was not going to get the necessary support, because he wouldn't. He reached a point where he wanted to go it alone, not even under the auspices of ECOWAS. He was being propped up by France, that we can give you the military support, the hardware, you have the troops on the ground, go it alone.
And that was payback for turning a blind eye to his evil practices.
Exactly.
You see, exactly. Yeah. But now he realized that it was not going to work, and also his henchmen told him not to do it. But the same thing they are choosing Tinubu, that Tinubu does not leave Paris. All the time he's in Paris. And of course, you cannot take it away from the suspicions of the people. Where there is smoke, there is certainly a fire, and unless smoke is informed by some other sources. Tinubu these days, more often, it does not take 2 months, is in Paris. Why? And remember that Nigeria, which is not a French colony or a former French colony, which was also literally ejected out of ECO currency. You remember it was going to be part of the ECO currency, and it was ejected out. What is this new love? Even the history, by the way, of the Nigerian history, when you look at the civil war in Nigeria, the Biafra War, you remember that it was France which was propping up Niger to recognize Biafra. And Niger, and I think Nigeria owes Niger that Niger stood on its had a very firm stand and said, we're not going to recognize Biafra, we are standing with Nigeria. You remember that cost enough?
Exactly.
So it informs maybe some of these decisions. Because if Nigeria now decides, Nigeria has already done, not of course on her own, under the auspices of ECOWAS, they have imposed that embargo, the economic embargo. That borderline of 1,600 kilometers, you can imagine, a huge one at that, by the way. The goods and services do not cross to Niger.
But in
Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali are all 100% landlocked countries. And we very well know that save for what Morocco has done for them, even the attempt, by the way, now to leave ECOWAS is because they have got a breathing space. The breathing space is because the Atlantic Ocean has been opened to them by Morocco. And even Morocco is also playing her own politics.
Yeah,
because Morocco wants to get at Algeria. Remember that the rebel activities, if you may call them such, the terrorist groups, all operating in the Sahel region, which Rachel was talking about, are actually, without consulting a witch doctor, all have got their origin and sponsorship in Algeria.
Yeah.
Now, you can imagine the confederation of the Sahel states, the three, as they want to form that confederation of theirs. They are all landlocked. They are under space land embargo from ECOWAS, the entire ECOWAS. They have opened a war front with the entire ECOWAS, which has remained. But at the same time, they have opened the front with the most pernicious country in as far as the rebel activities in the Sahel region is concerned, called Algeria, a very powerful country at that, because they have now gone into cahoots with Morocco because of the opening of their space into the Atlantic Ocean. Can they afford?
But you also, the other thing that which the viewer must be aware of is that these people, the three countries, the military leaders in the new country, the new leaders in the three countries, their claim, which genuinely so, was that they took over these governments because some of them were tampering with the constitution, like we have seen in Senegal. And that while they were doing that, there was no voice that was coming from ECOWAS. And I think 2 weeks or a week ago, the ministers of foreign affairs of the ECOWAS were in Nigeria.
Yes.
To try and diffuse the tension now in Senegal, because they realize that if they don't do that, Senegal is also going, and whoever will come as a leader in Senegal, unfortunately, maybe for Senegal, they may be a civilian leader who, after they take over, if it happened. But if you have all these military leaders taking over their governments and pronouncing themselves as leaders, and their claim is genuine to the extent that they are trying to stop the constitutional overthrow in the government in these countries being done by the sitting presidents, then they have a genuine claim. But what happens now? Who is going to enforce this constitutional protection? And remember, under ECOWAS and under the African Union, we have this clause of non-interference in internal affairs of the state. So where is going to be the protection? Are we going to see more takeovers in this part of the world? Or there's going to be some remedy to stop this, both which people talked about, the internal takeover in terms of through elections or extension of term limits or external takeover by military or other forms of takeover?
The truth of the matter is that, first of all, I am one of the people who believes that African Union, for instance, is a continental body that has done considerably well in the past. It has challenges, a new set of challenges, which probably was not the same as when the Kwame Nkrumah's, the Ben Beras, the Julius Nyerere's at that time were experiencing. Now, in the same spirit, I do not want to believe that, for instance, ECOWAS, which is about to make 50 years, is a body without blemish. No. ECOWAS, by 1975, when it was formed, it had the core mandate of reorganizing the member states to rally around economic benefits, to harness the economic benefits from among her members. And also, the extra mandate was to economically look after each other's back. Now, that one includes what we are talking about, the preservation and respect of constitutional rule of law to be within the member states, to have democracy.
But and also, even complete your point.
Okay. So therefore, countries, and you remember it is not the first time, even the countries we are talking about, be it Niger, be it Burkina Faso, be it Mali, that they have had problems including coups. This is not the first time. This is not the first time the coups are happening in those respective countries. The same thing that is happening in Guinea, for instance. Now, the Guinea-Conakry is a particularly very useful case for us because it has got such a unique history of one of the strongest leaders, as you very well know, in the Pan-African affairs, that now we are asking ourselves as to the founders of Guinea, Conakry, how they must be turning in their grave, looking at what is happening right now. What I know for a fact is that if we had these coups take place in the countries as they have taken place, and the military leaders are promising that for us, our problem was that the population in our respective countries was not getting the benefits of her natural resources, I will listen. And therefore, we carried out a coup because our uranium was going for free to France, to light up the entire France. Now that we have taken up power, we are going to reorganize this country. We may take a little bit long, give us 3 years. But we shall make sure that we organize this country and we hand it back. If it needs that we consider ourselves to be the most suitable, we are going to resign from the army and we shall take the mantle, the political mantle of leadership. That one I will agree. But for them to consistently say that we have seen no use in the democracy or on the African continent, and we are not going to respect any democratic principles whatsoever, we are going to make sure that we keep in the military fatigue and we rule these countries, I disagree.
Rachel, you're saying something.
I think one of the things that no one is really particularly focusing on at this time is that they have laid bare their concerns concerning their relationship with ECOWAS. One of the things that ECOWAS is supposed, and by extension ECOMOG, it's supposed to actually constitute a cooperation in terms of military, political, and other spheres. But they say, look, these states are particularly endangered by terrorism. And they're saying ECOWAS and ECOMOG have not rallied to our rescue. We have been struggling with these people. Of course, the French came in, but that is to secure the uranium. The Americans have also had their own reasons for their presence. But they say, but I thought we were supposed to be stronger as a bloc. When I need you the most, I don't see you, I don't feel you. Why is it that when it comes to constitutional order, you're very loud, very active, but when it comes to those things that fundamentally alter the landscape in terms of, in this case, militarists, we don't hear from you. That is one of the things that they have talked about. But another thing I suspect must be at the back of their minds, although it has not been at the forefront of their arguments, has been that Mali and Niger in particular have been stubbornly at the bottom of the global human development index. Stubbornly so. They have made no movement for all these years.
And yet they are resource rich.
Nigeria, on the other hand, and I have to talk about Nigeria because Nigeria is the big brother by any measure. They have catapulted themselves to the top of the economic pile on this continent. They have made gains in economic terms, not just in GDP, but also in other spheres.
They are the largest economy on the African continent.
So I'm thinking these people who have been struggling with high mortality, whether it comes to infant mothers, sanitation, any measure of human development, they have been stubbornly stuck. So I think they're wondering, where are the gains out of this cooperation? But more than that, they also say not only have they not received help in terms of battling the militants that threaten their existence, they also are not hearing from ECOWAS when it comes to answering the basics, even in terms of governance. They're saying, should the first answer to our problem be a chokehold on, he talked about trade. Nigeria even cut off power to Niger. Should that be the first response to a neighbor in a dire state? What about if this cutting off of power, unilateral moreover, because I don't, ECOWAS had not even sat, Nigeria did that. What if there were children who were or other patients on life support when you did this? Is that a brotherly way of doing things?
It is happening.
They are wondering,
70%
should
of
that
Niger
be the
is
first
in darkness.
response to a person in crisis? Should military threats be the first response? I have genuine concerns, and no one is laying any groundwork to address the fact that, for example, these people who have been in power have been collaborators with France that has sucked the lifeblood out of Niger, sucked the lifeblood out of Mali, sucked the lifeblood out of Burkina Faso. I am not hearing how you're going to help me own these resources. Why is it that the first way or the first response is to choke me, These people are aggrieved. They're saying, yes, they have issues, but ECOWAS is not addressing them. So why should we continue the partnership?
Yeah, because I think a point comes in, because we have ECOWAS, which should be the monitor for that region. And people are saying, look, we don't need to be bold, because we're also governments, we're also sovereign states, but we need to be supported. And like you are saying, I think...
And understood.
Yeah, Nigeria comes in as a very big bully for the rest of the standard, did all and does all the work for the ECOWAS. But also, I think even in the recent one, when they were supposed to attack, Nigeria was the one leading.
And Ivory Coast.
Yes, and Ivory Coast. So, so you realize that they are disconnects. There are some countries that are looked at as smaller countries, some states that are looked at as minor states, and some democracies that are looked at as developing democracies for that. So I think that becomes a problem, like you guys have put. But also, I think when you look at it from the African perspective, again, then you realize there are still even more issues that need to be looked at. If we don't handle that, both in all these blocks, we are going to have problems. Same problems that ECOWAS is facing could be the same problems that maybe sometimes could come to the southern part of Africa, where you find also South Africa as a big bully, and some of the other parts of the world. But when we look at that, it also informs the next decisions that should be taken on this continent. What should the African Union look at this, and what can it do to make sure that these countries are peaceful, and then the whole continent is peaceful without and avoid the interferences. But I think, and Nduguru Garama, when we come back, I think we'll go for a break shortly, and when we come back, we're going to look at what can we learn as leaders of Africa, the leadership of African Union, the leadership of the East African Community, the leadership of the South African, the COMESA, and others that can learn from what is happening from West Africa, and that we can avoid similar situations in the next few years, or in the next phase of democratization on the African continent. Please don't go away. We are going off shortly for a short break, but we shall come back after that break. And thank you for being with us on this program.
An amazing off-the-hook youth program brings you an array of fun, exciting, and educative segments you do not want to miss. From red carpet moments to proms, youth empowerment programs to youth gig vibes, and so much more, Teens Crown will get you hooked. Only on UBC TV every Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Don't miss.
Property Line, everything real estate, construction, class, and luxury.
Real estate, it's land and developments on land.
We are now as a country in an auto-drive mode with respect to real estate.
We have a deficit in housing of more than 2 million units.
For the real estate, when you have income, I want you to contribute something.
Don't miss The Property Line every Saturday 7:30 p.m. and Monday 11 a.m. only on UBC TV. Inspiring Uganda.
This is Chilling. Don't miss a brand new season of Chilling on UBC TV.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja Ankole segment. Learn about the fabrication of Ankole Kingdom from Nkore, the beautiful village of milk and honey at the detriment of Mpororo State.
Ankole as a kingdom came about in 1901.
Ankole is a colonial fabrication.
And all these small kingdoms were counties of the original Itara.
Ruhinda Ruanjunachi, who was Mchwezi,
the son of Wamara Rhanja Njojo Rwabwera.
And that's the rulers of Ankole called Bahinda.
Who are the pre-colonial heroes from Ankole?
Is it Rutaraka, Muguta, is it Intare, Kitabanyoro? Find out from Tuko Pamoja.
Premiering on Wednesday, 28th February at 5 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. at the National Theatre. To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Yeah, welcome back to the program Pan-African Friday, coming your way all the way from UBC here in Kampala. By the time we left for the break, we are talking about lessons that can be learned from what is happening in West Africa, and then to stop future such occurrences on the continent, and what African Union can learn, and of course other blocks of the South, of the East and the North, to ensure that Africa can be a stable place politically and economically, to avoid such occurrences. Ndugu Rugarama, you are talking about something as a deterrent to the further occurrences of such.
Yes. Sister Rachel brought up something from which I want to build my point. You see, one of the errors that ECOWAS committed, in my opinion, even with all the technocrats, political, economic, and otherwise that they have, errors can be committed. And I believe they committed one big error, which in foreign relations is called misuse of the concept of the deterrence. Now, deterrence is where, for instance, there is no way, let's use the example, say Uganda cannot apply deterrence on a country like America. To say all options are on the table, and if you don't do this, we are going to do this and this and that. We don't have that capacity. Now, ECOWAS could have used the deterrence concept better, other than coming up and say we are giving you 1 week, within which, if you do not, we are going to move in. Immediately, they carried out space embargo, no-fly zone. They said, we are cutting off all the supplies, services, goods. We are talking about landlocked countries. Those of us, all of us, basically know the map of West Africa. When you look at Burkina Faso, you look at Mali, you look at Niger, they are all landlocked. Now, you say the entire Niger now, which is 75% in darkness, hospitals are not functioning. Some of these other countries, by the way, when you look at what is happening now, be it Burkina Faso and what have you, they are running out because all the big economies, France, America, Britain, and the entire Europe, then now ECOWAS, which is surrounding them, by imposing that embargo, they don't even have the ability to pay their civil service workers and their army. That one is a very big problem. So this was, by trying to get out, was to say we have experienced enough, we have nothing more to lose, we can as well go. And of course, when they got some relief in Morocco saying, we can open up for you, and of course they will never be run out of other members who would want also to trade with you in one way or another, then they said, now we are going with Morocco. Of course, the choice of going with Morocco has got its own repercussions. We may not have the time to go into it because we know that that is now creating another front on the northern part with Algeria. That may not be simple. But the point I'm making is that what ECOWAS should have done is to better use the principle of deterrence by making sure they come to the members that had carried out the coup, the Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, say, look, all the options are on the table. We want you to go back to civilian rule. And this one, you must give us very firm promises on how we are going to do it. Either we agree, or for us, we give you the timetable. But remember, this is what we are going to do. We are going to carry out embargo on food and medical supplies. We are going to carry out embargo on any travel, seal the borders completely, and also we are going to do complete cut-off of any trade with you. We are also going to influence other members, not on the continent, to make sure that they have got no dealings with you. Finally, we are also going to intervene militarily when the worst comes to worst. Now, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Guinea would weigh as ECOWAS applies piecemeal some of these threats.
So you are saying that the sanctions...
They hurried now. In the hiring, they committed errors. The countries that we are talking about now have got nothing to lose. They have seen it all. They have got institutions like hospitals, clinics, which are not functioning. Children are dying. And Rachel talked about this. He said, but look, I mean now, this
a bit
was
like Gaza.
This was a big error. Because, and so I thought I would expound on it properly.
But now, when we look at it in this this way, because African Union example, of course, we are talking about the examples that the other parts of the world, of Africa, are learning, including the African Union itself. The issue of suspension from the African Union, suspension from ECOWAS, does it hold any meaning? Does it make sense?
Yeah, you see,
it holds meaning.
It does. It holds meaning. By the way, let's understand this. I have argued, and I will continue to argue.
Because
you see,
you could also harden people.
Yes.
And this is what has happened.
Yes.
And,
Let Rachel
an
explain
unintended
something.
consequence of, and I think I understand why ECOWAS, I think they, for lack of a better word, they panicked. And why did they panic?
Tulubu was new in office.
Not only that,
he's not politically
but they
mature.
felt like this way of doing things would soon overtake more states, and quickly. They felt that now that Guinea had been down that path, and Mali and Niger and Burkina Faso, they thought, well, it might come to Nigeria soon, and Senegal, and so on and so forth. So I think in a rush to stem the tide, they overreached themselves. But remember that among the things that they are being accused of, that Ndugu Rugarama has labored to explain, they call this approach inhumane treatment. By the time you strangle a whole country, I think that is inhumane, because the little woman in the smallest village in Mali did not take part in this coup. So when you punish her and she cannot trade in her little tomatoes and cabbages, it is unjust. But that side,